The colony of Nova Terra buzzed with life under the pale glow of two suns. Nestled on the edge of uncharted space, it was humanity's boldest attempt at survival, a fragile outpost carved into a rocky planet rich in resources, but poor in comfort. The colonists were used to hardship, but nothing could have prepared them for what happened that day. It began with a streak of light cutting across the sky, brighter than any star, and faster than anything their sensors had ever tracked. Alarms blared as the object descended, its sleek form shimmering like liquid metal catching sunlight. It wasn't human-made. Everyone knew that instantly. When the ship finally landed in the barren plains outside the colony, silence fell over Nova Terra. No one dared move. Cal Armitage stood among the crowd gathered near the landing site, his hands shoved into the pockets of his worn jacket. At 24, he was one of the youngest engineers in the colony, known more for tinkering with broken machinery than making big decisions. But today, like everyone else, he couldn't look away. The ship was unlike anything he'd seen before, smooth, silver, and pulsating faintly with an inner light, as if alive. Then came her. A ramp extended from the vessel, and out stepped a figure who seemed to belong to another world entirely. She was tall, her skin shimmering faintly with a pearlescent sheen, and her eyes glowed softly, like twin amethysts. Her clothes looked woven from threads of light, shifting colors with every step she took. She carried no weapons, made no threats, and said not a single word. Instead, she simply observed, her gaze sweeping over the colonists with an intensity that felt both curious and distant. "She doesn't look dangerous," muttered Jace, Cal's best friend and fellow engineer, breaking the tense silence. "But why isn't she saying anything?" "Maybe she doesn't speak our language," Cal replied quietly, though he doubted it. There was something deliberate about her silence, as if she were choosing her moments carefully. For hours, the alien woman, later identified through scans as belonging to the species Cytherian, remained motionless near her ship, watching everything. Colonists went about their tasks uneasily, stealing glances at her whenever they thought she wasn't looking. Some whispered theories. She was a scout sent by a larger fleet, or maybe a refugee fleeing some cosmic disaster. Others feared she might be waiting for reinforcements to attack. Cale found himself drawn to her, not because of fear or suspicion, but curiosity. He noticed how her gaze lingered on simple things, the way children played, the hum of machinery, even the sound of wind whipping through the dusty plains. It was almost as if she were memorizing everything she saw. When night fell, the colonists debated what to do next. Most wanted answers, but no one dared approach her directly. That's when Kel decided to act. Grabbing a small toolkit and a flashlight, he walked toward the ship alone. His heart pounded as he approached her, but she didn't react until he stopped just a few feet away. "I'm Kel," he said slowly, pointing to himself. Then, hesitating, he pointed to her. "You." She tilted her head slightly, studying him with those glowing eyes. For a moment, he thought she might ignore him completely. But then, to his surprise, she raised a hand and mimicked his gesture, touching her chest lightly. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make Cal smile. "My name's Kel," he repeated, softer this time. "Welcome." Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture softened. Whether it was gratitude, acknowledgement, or simply patience, Cal couldn't tell. One thing was certain, though. She wasn't leaving anytime soon. And neither was the mystery surrounding her. Days turned into weeks, and the alien princess, whom Cal had taken to calling Valithra, after spotting faint symbols etched on her ship that resembled the name, remained a silent enigma. She never strayed far from her vessel, but seemed content to observe the colony's daily life with quiet fascination. Her presence was both comforting and unsettling. While she didn't appear hostile, her lack of communication left everyone guessing about her intentions. The colonists grew divided in their opinions. Some saw her as a potential ally, marveling at the advanced technology of her ship and wondering if it could help improve their struggling settlement. Others viewed her with suspicion, convinced she was biding her time before revealing some hidden agenda. Arguments broke out during council meetings, with leaders debating whether they should trust her or prepare for conflict. Cale, however, couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Valithra than met the eye. He spent hours working near her ship, pretending to repair nearby equipment just so he could watch her. She often stood still, gazing at the horizon where Novaterra's twin suns painted the sky in fiery hues. Sometimes, she would crouch low to examine plants or rocks, running her fingers over them as though trying to understand their essence. One evening, inspired by curiosity, Cale decided to leave something for her, a small offering. It was an old Earth book he brought with him when he first joined the colony, its pages worn and yellowed. On the cover was an image of a forest bathed in sunlight, a scene utterly alien to this barren planet. He placed it carefully near the base of her ship and stepped back, unsure what to expect. The next morning, the book was gone. In courage, Cale began leaving other items: a piece of art crafted from scrap metal, a recording of ocean waves crashing against a shore, even a simple flower grown in one of the colony's hydroponic gardens. Each time, the gifts vanished without explanation. Valithra never acknowledged them directly, but Cale noticed subtle changes. Once, he caught her glancing at him briefly, her violet eyes softening ever so slightly. Another time, he found a shard of crystalline material left in place of his latest gift. It shimmered faintly under the light, clearly not of human origin. Word of Cale's experiments spread through the colony, sparking mixed reactions. Some admired his bravery, seeing it as a step toward building trust. Others accused him of being reckless, warning that provoking the alien might have dangerous consequences. Jace, ever the skeptic, teased him relentlessly. "What are you doing, Cale? Trying to win her over with trinkets?" Jace asked one afternoon as they worked on repairing a broken generator. "She hasn't hurt anyone," Cale replied defensively. "And maybe she's just scared. Or lonely." "Lonely aliens don't usually show up uninvited with spaceships," Jace shot back, though his tone softened. "Just be careful, all right." Despite the criticism, Cale pressed on. His efforts paid off one quiet night when he spotted Valithra standing unusually close to the edge of her ship's ramp. In her hand, she held the flower he'd given her days earlier. As he approached cautiously, she turned to face him, holding the flower out as if presenting it back to him. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, Cale reached out and took it. The petals felt strangely warm, as though they carried a trace of her energy. Though no words were exchanged, something passed between them, an unspoken understanding that transcended language. As Cale walked away that night, he realized something important. Valithra wasn't just observing them. She was learning. And perhaps in her own way, she was reaching out too. But why? What did she want from them? Those questions lingered in Cale's mind long after he returned to his quarters, keeping him awake as whispers of doubt and wonder swirled among the stars outside his window. Tensions in Novaterra reached a boiling point when the colony's fragile peace was shattered by an unexpected threat. A rogue mining corporation known as Exogen Dynamics arrived unannounced with a fleet of heavily armed ships. Their leader, a ruthless man named Commander Dax, demanded access to the planet's rare mineral deposits, claiming they had legal rights granted by Earth's central government, a claim the colonists knew nothing about. The situation escalated quickly. When the colonists refused to comply, Dax ordered his forces to begin extraction operations by force. Armed drones descended upon the settlement, destroying equipment and threatening anyone who stood in their way. Fear spread like wildfire through Novaterra, and arguments erupted among the colonists over how to respond. Some wanted to fight back, while others believed resistance would only lead to more bloodshed. Amidst the chaos, Valithra finally broke her pattern of passive observation. She stepped forward, not to speak, but to act. It happened during a particularly tense standoff near the colony's main power generator. Dax's men had surrounded the structure, preparing to disable it as leverage against the settlers. Just as things seemed hopeless, a low hum filled the air. The ground beneath everyone's feet vibrated slightly, and then, with a flash of light, the drones froze midair, their systems completely disabled. The humans turned in shock to see Valithra standing at the edge of the scene, her glowing eyes fixed on the immobilized machines. "What did you do?" Dax shouted, his voice trembling with anger and disbelief. Valithra didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand slowly, and the drones collapsed harmlessly to the ground. The message was clear. She wouldn't tolerate aggression against those she had chosen to protect. Though her actions saved the colony from immediate destruction, they also raised new questions. Why had she intervened now? Was this truly altruism, or was there another motive behind her sudden involvement? Cale watched the entire scene unfold, his heart pounding. Afterward, he approached her cautiously, his mind racing with possibilities. "You didn't have to do that," he said softly. "But, thank you." She met his gaze briefly before turning away, retreating to the safety of her ship. Her silence left him uneasy, yet grateful. He knew she had risked revealing too much of her abilities, a move that could make her a target if Dax decided to retaliate. The next day, Cale addressed the colony leaders, urging them to trust Valithra despite her secrecy. "She protected us when we couldn't protect ourselves," he argued. "We owe her a chance to explain herself." After hours of heated debate, the council agreed to form a temporary alliance with Valithra. They allowed her limited access to their resources and technology, hoping she might share insights into defending against exogen dynamics. In return, she continued using her ship's advanced systems to neutralize further attacks without causing casualties. Though the truce brought some stability, not everyone trusted her. Jace voiced his concerns openly, warning Cale that relying on someone so mysterious was dangerous. "What happens when she decides we're not worth protecting anymore?" he asked bitterly. Cale didn't have an answer, but deep down, he believed Valithra's actions stemmed from something deeper than self-interest. Whether it was empathy, duty, or perhaps even loneliness, she had chosen to stand with them. For now. As days passed, the colonists worked alongside her, combining human ingenuity with Scytherian technology to fortify their defenses. Slowly, a fragile bond began to form between two vastly different species. Yet, even as hope grew within the colony, Cale couldn't shake the feeling that Valithra's true purpose remained hidden, waiting to be uncovered. And somewhere beyond the stars, the shadows of her past loomed closer, threatening to pull them all into a conflict far greater than any of them could imagine. The aftermath of the battle left Nova Terra forever changed. The once hostile skies were now clear, and the colony breathed a collective sigh of relief. Yet, amidst the celebrations, Cale couldn't shake the heaviness in his chest. Valithra had survived the activation sequence, but the toll it took on her was evident. Her movements were slower, her glowing eyes dimmer, and though she still stood tall, there was a fragility to her presence that hadn't been there before. "She's alive," Dr. Marcus said softly as she examined Valithra in the makeshift medical bay. "But her body, it's like she's running on borrowed time." Cale clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "There has to be something we can do," he insisted, pacing back and forth. "She saved us all. We can't just let her fade away." Valithra, seated quietly on a cot, raised a hand to stop him. Though weak, her voice carried a quiet strength when she finally spoke. "This is not your burden to bear," she said, her words soft but firm. "My choice brought balance back to the stars. It was worth it." Her selflessness only deepened Cale's resolve. He refused to accept that her sacrifice would end here. Over the next few days, he worked tirelessly with Dr. Marquez and other engineers, combining human ingenuity with fragments of Scytherian technology salvaged from her ship. They hoped to create a device that could stabilize her energy, a way to give her more time, even if temporary. Meanwhile, the colonists began to see Valithra not as an outsider or savior, but as one of their own. Children brought her drawings of stars and planets. Farmers offered her freshly grown crops. Musicians played songs inspired by her bravery. Slowly, she began to open up, sharing pieces of her culture through gestures and fragmented visions. She taught them about the crystalline forests of Cythera, the music that flowed through its rivers, and the harmony her people once cherished. For the first time since arriving, Valithra chose to stay, not out of obligation, but because she found meaning among these imperfect, resilient humans, and they, in turn, found inspiration in her resilience and grace. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Cale approached her near the edge of the settlement. In his hands, he held a small device, a prototype powered by both human engineering and Cytherian crystals. "It's not perfect," he admitted, handing it to her, "but it should help stabilize your energy levels, at least for a while." She studied the device carefully before looking at him with gratitude in her eyes. "You've given me more than I ever expected," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Hope." From that day forward, Valithra became an integral part of Novaterra. She helped redesign their infrastructure using remnants of her advanced technology, ensuring the colony could thrive without relying on Earth's crumbling systems. Her wisdom guided them through challenges, and her presence reminded them of what unity truly meant. As months passed, Cale often found himself gazing at the stars alongside her. One night, he asked the question that had lingered in his mind since her arrival. "What will you do next? Will you keep searching for others like you?" She smiled faintly, her violet eyes reflecting the constellations above. "Perhaps," she replied. "But for now, my journey has led me here, to this place, these people, and you. That is enough." Though her past remained shrouded in loss, her future burned bright with possibility. Together, humanity and the alien princess forged a new chapter, one built on trust, understanding, and the unyielding belief that even broken worlds could heal under the light of hope. And so, beneath the twin suns of Novaterra, a bond-transcending species flourished, proving that sometimes the greatest victories are those fought not for survival, but for connection. Just as the colony began to find a fragile rhythm with Valithra at their side, a new and far greater danger emerged from the depths of space. One quiet evening, the sky above Novaterra lit up with an ominous glow, not from the twin suns, but from something artificial. A massive swarm of drones descended upon the planet, their sleek, insect-like forms glinting menacingly in the dim light. These weren't ordinary machines. They moved with precision, scanning the surface like predators hunting prey. Cal's blood ran cold when he realized what, or who, they were looking for. "It's her," he muttered under his breath as he watched the swarm spread across the horizon. "They're here because of her." Valithra didn't need anyone to explain. She stood motionless near her ship, her violet eyes glowing brighter than ever before. Her posture was rigid, almost defensive, as if bracing herself for what was to come. Cale approached her cautiously, his heart pounding. "What are these things?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. She turned to face him, and for the first time, her expression wasn't unreadable. It was filled with sorrow. She gestured toward the swarm, then touched her chest lightly. It was clear. This attack was meant for her. Dr. Marquez confirmed everyone's worst fears after analyzing the drone's energy signatures. "These belong to the Scourge," she said grimly during an emergency council meeting. "If Valithra's people were destroyed by them centuries ago, it means they've been searching for survivors ever since. And now, they've found her." The colonists erupted into panic. Some demanded that Valithra leave immediately, fearing her presence would bring destruction down on all of them. Others argued that abandoning her would make them no better than the enemy. Amidst the chaos, Cale stepped forward, his voice firm despite the fear gripping his chest. "We can't turn our backs on her," he declared. "She protected us when we needed it most. Now it's our turn to protect her." Valithra revealed the truth later that night. Leading Cale inside her ship, she activated a holographic display showing the inner workings of her vessel. At its core lay a device unlike anything humanity had ever seen, a pulsating orb of crystalline energy. humming softly as if alive. Through gestures and fragmented visions, she explained that this weapon could neutralize the drone swarm, but activating it required merging her consciousness with the device. The process would likely kill her. Cale shook his head vehemently. "There has to be another way," he insisted, his voice breaking. "You've already done so much for us. We can't let you sacrifice yourself." Her response was silent but resolute. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. When she pointed to the stars outside, Cale understood. This wasn't just about saving Nova Terra. It was about ensuring that the Scourge wouldn't continue spreading destruction. If she died stopping them, it would be for something greater than herself. Torn between despair and determination, Cale volunteered to assist her during the activation sequence. He refused to let her face the ordeal alone. Together, they prepared for the battle ahead, knowing that failure wasn't an option, not for the colony, not for Valithra, and not for the countless lives hanging in the balance. As the swarm drew closer, casting long shadows over the land, Valithra took a deep breath and stepped toward her ship's core. Her silence spoke louder than words. She was ready. But Cale couldn't shake the feeling that this fight would change everything, for better or worse. And somewhere beyond the stars, the echoes of Exatheris whispered their approval, urging her to finish what her ancestors had started so long ago. As Valithra's presence became a part of daily life in Nova Terra, curiosity about her origins grew stronger. The colonists began piecing together fragments of information from the data embedded in her ship's systems, scraps of holographic recordings, encrypted logs, and symbols that hinted at a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity's. Cale, driven by his growing connection to her, spent countless hours deciphering these clues alongside Dr. Elena Marquez, the colony's lead xenobiologist. What they uncovered was both breathtaking and heartbreaking. Through shimmering holograms projected from the ship's core, they saw glimpses of Scytheris, a world unlike anything they could have imagined. Its landscapes sparkled with crystalline forests, rivers of liquid light wound through valleys, and cities floated gracefully above the surface, suspended by gravity-defying technology. It was paradise, a testament to harmony between nature and innovation. But then came the war. The recording showed flashes of destruction, explosions shattering those floating cities, fires consuming the crystalline trees, and skies darkened by fleets of alien ships. The once thriving planet was reduced to ruins, its people scattered or wiped out entirely. Among the chaos, Cale spotted images of figures who resembled Valithra, their glowing eyes filled with terror and despair. One particular scene haunted him. A young girl standing amidst the wreckage, clutching a fragment of crystal as tears streamed down her face. He couldn't be sure, but something about her posture reminded him of Valithra. Dr. Marquez explained that the invaders were likely an ancient enemy known only as the Scourge, a name whispered in legends among other alien species. They were conquerors, relentless in their pursuit of resources and power. If Valithra truly hailed from Scytheris, she wasn't just a survivor. She was a relic of a lost era. Cale found himself dreaming more vividly than ever before. In his sleep, he wandered through shimmering halls of translucent stone, hearing faint melodies that seemed to echo from another dimension. Symbols identical to those on Valithra's ship appeared around him, glowing softly as if guiding him forward. At first, he thought it was stress playing tricks on his mind, but when he woke up one morning with a sharp pain in his temples and the sensation of warmth lingering on his skin, he knew it wasn't coincidence. Somehow, Valithra was reaching into his thoughts. He confronted her the next day, approaching her cautiously as she stood near her ship. Holding up his hands to show he meant no harm, he gestured toward his head. "Are you doing this?" he asked hesitantly. Valithra tilted her head, studying him intently. For the first time, she reached out, not with words, but with action. She placed a hand gently against his forehead, and suddenly, images flooded his mind. He saw her childhood among the crystalline forests, laughter shared with family members whose faces blurred like reflections on water. Then came the attack, the screams, the flames, the unbearable loss. When the vision faded, Cale stumbled back, overwhelmed. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I didn't know." Her expression remained unreadable, but there was a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. Whether it was gratitude for his understanding or sadness for all she had endured, Cale couldn't tell. What he did know was that she trusted him enough to share a piece of herself, a glimpse into the shadows of her past. That night, as Cale sat alone in his quarters, he realized how much heavier the mystery surrounding Valithra had become. She wasn't just an observer anymore. She was a guardian of memories, burdened by history and searching for something, or someone, to give her purpose. And somehow, without knowing why, Cale felt certain that finding answers would change not only her fate but theirs too. The fragile alliance between the colonists and Valithra deepened as days turned into weeks, but her silence continued to weigh heavily on everyone. Cale, however, sensed that something within her was shifting. She seemed more present now, her glowing eyes lingering a little longer on the faces of those around her, as if searching for understanding, or perhaps forgiveness. Determined to bridge the gap between them, Cale made a bold decision one evening. "Let me show you something," he said softly, standing near her ship with a hopeful smile. When she tilted her head in curiosity, he gestured for her to follow him. Together, they walked toward the edge of the colony, where a makeshift observatory had been set up. It wasn't much, just a collection of salvaged telescopes and monitors, but it offered a stunning view of the twin suns setting over the horizon. Cale pointed upward, tracing constellations with his finger. "These are the stars we came from," he explained, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "Earth is out there somewhere. It's complicated back home, but it's still our beginning." Valithra gazed at the sky, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Cale wondered if he'd misjudged her interest. But then, to his surprise, she reached out and touched the screen of a nearby monitor displaying a star map. Her fingers moved hesitantly, yet deliberately, rearranging the points of light until they formed an unfamiliar pattern. "What is this?" Cale asked, leaning closer. The new constellation didn't match any chart he'd seen before. She stepped back, her violet eyes locking onto his. Then, without warning, she placed a hand on his temple again. This time, the vision was clearer than ever. A vast, crystalline planet orbiting a distant star, its surface shimmering like liquid glass under 3 moons. He saw towering spires of light stretching into the heavens, cities alive with music and laughter. And then, just as suddenly, he saw flames consuming everything, the skies choked with ash. When the vision ended, Cale stumbled, clutching his head. Tears welled in his eyes, not just from the intensity of what he'd witnessed, but from the sheer weight of her loss. "That's Excytherus," he whispered, his voice trembling. "You're home." She nodded slowly, her gaze softening. For the first time, Cale saw cracks in her stoic exterior, a flicker of pain, a shadow of longing. She wasn't just an observer. She was a refugee carrying the memories of a world destroyed. Later that night, Cale shared what he'd learned with Dr. Marquez and the colony leaders. Though some remained skeptical, others were moved by the revelation. They realized that Valithra wasn't merely a silent protector. She was a survivor burdened by unimaginable grief. Her presence among them wasn't random. She had come seeking refuge, connection, or perhaps redemption. Determined to help her heal, Cale began leaving more meaningful gifts near her ship. Hand-drawn sketches of Earth's landscapes, recordings of human songs, even fragments of poetry about resilience and hope. Each offering was met with quiet acknowledgement. One day, he found a small shard of crystal embedded in the ground where his latest gift had been. It pulsed faintly with light, as though alive. When he touched it, images flooded his mind once more, this time not of destruction, but of gratitude. As their bond grew stronger, so did the colony's unity. Inspired by Valithra's sacrifices, the settlers worked harder than ever to defend their home against exogen dynamics. Yet even as they prepared for future battles, Kel couldn't shake the feeling that Valithra's journey was far from over. Her actions suggested she carried a greater purpose, one tied not only to her past, but also to the uncertain future looming beyond the stars. And though she still hadn't spoken a word, her heart was beginning to reveal itself, piece by fragile piece. The moment of truth arrived as the drone swarm descended upon Novaterra, their mechanical hum filling the air like a swarm of locusts. The colony braced itself for devastation, but Valithra stood unwavering at the center of it all. Her ship's crystalline core pulsed with an otherworldly light, casting eerie shadows across her face. Kel stood beside her, his hands trembling not from fear, but from the weight of what was about to happen. "Are you sure about this?" Kel asked one last time, his voice barely audible over the chaos. Valithra turned to him, her violet eyes glowing brighter than ever before. For the first time, she didn't rely on gestures or visions to communicate. Slowly, deliberately, she opened her mouth and spoke. Her voice resonated like chimes in a soft breeze, each word carrying a depth that seemed to echo through time itself. "I have carried my people's pain for centuries," she said, her tone steady yet tinged with sorrow. "I watched as Satharis burned, as the scourge consumed everything I loved. I survived, not because I was strong, but because I was hidden. Now, they have found me." Her words sent shivers down Kel's spine. He had imagined countless scenarios where she might finally speak, but nothing could have prepared him for the haunting beauty of her voice, or the raw emotion behind it. "But why now?" Kel pressed, his voice cracking under the strain of holding back tears. "Why fight them here? You could leave, save yourself." Valithra shook her head gently, her gaze fixed on the approaching swarm. "If I run, they will find others like me, those who still hide among the stars. If I stay silent, they will destroy worlds without mercy. My people underestimated the cost of their hubris. I will not make the same mistake." Her resolve left no room for argument. She reached out and placed her hand on Kel's chest, just above his heart. "You have shown me kindness when I deserved none," she continued, her voice softer now. "You have given me hope when I thought it lost forever. Let me do the same for you." Before Kel could respond, Valithra stepped toward the crystalline core. With a deep breath, she began the activation sequence, her body glowing faintly as her consciousness merged with the device. The orb pulsed violently, sending waves of energy rippling outward. Outside, the drones faltered mid-flight, their systems disrupted by the overwhelming force emanating from the ship. Kel stayed close, monitoring the process despite knowing there was little he could do if something went wrong. His mind raced with memories. Their first meeting, the gifts she'd accepted, the visions she'd shared. She wasn't just an alien princess anymore. She was someone who had touched his life in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. As the minutes dragged on, the strain became visible on Valithra's face. Beads of sweat formed on her shimmering skin, and her breathing grew labored. Yet she never wavered. When the final wave of energy surged forth, obliterating the remaining drones, she collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. Kel rushed to her side, cradling her gently. "It's done," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "You did it." She managed a weak smile, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. "No," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "We did." Outside, the skies cleared, revealing the twin suns once more. The colony erupted into cheers, unaware of the toll the victory had taken on Valithra. As Kel held her, he realized that while the battle was won, the scars it left behind would linger, for both her and the humans who now called her one of their own. And though her voice had been heard, her story was far from over.